to be felt before we go and, goof around with anything else. So what's the history? What can you validate? What do you know? Obviously you did the studying and you did some studying on it too, so you can have some add-in, I'm sure. But Brent?
Go through the history, and I want to
Floor's yours.
I want to treat this sort of like campfire story time. So,
where are my marshmallows then?
There's the good stuff.
On the street, I can run over there and grab them.
I know, right? Okay, wait. I gotta go and get some chocolate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do some s'mores here. So I'm just going to ask everybody to close their eyes, and then you can open them in a moment when you feel comfortable, and just take a deep breath. And just slow down. We've been through a lot. It's been exciting. You'll hear the noises in the street outside, and you can ignore those. And just imagine that you're here in the Union Hotel in the fledgling town of Sacramento. And the year is 1850. 2 years ago, James Marshall discovered gold in the sawmill dredges of Sutter's Mill in Kelowna. The mill was actually there to mill wood and lumber to build up this new fledgling city along the Sacramento River. The gold wasn't the intention, but they found the gold, and everybody knows that story of gold at Sutter's Mill, gold in California, they said. And from January of 1848, when that gold was found, to the end of 1852, just 4 short years, the population of California, and specifically the Sacramento area, exploded from 14,000 settlers to 225,000 settlers. In 1850, the only way to travel, this was before the Transcontinental Railroad, and it was before the wagon trains that would become a result of the gold rush. If you wanted to get to California from Europe or from the East Coast, which is a much older part of this country, you took a clipper ship and you went around the southern horn of South America and into San Francisco, which is an older city by some measure than Sacramento. So sure, lots of people settled in the Bay Area and the San Francisco area, but what people wanted, what people came here was for the gold. And so the easiest way was, and you could just imagine the clipper ships filling up the docks right here along the river in this, what was basically a tent and village hut town being built up, and then they built the storefronts up very much like an Old West town with the square front, what they call the false front. And a lot of these buildings still stand. And as we got into 1850 and that gold rush really got underway, it didn't take too long for people to realize that we need a hotel. We need a place, and the floods were going all the time. In January of 1850, it flooded, downtown Sacramento flooded. In April, most of downtown Sacramento burned down. In August of 1850 were the squatters' rights, where John Sutter sort of claimed Sacramento for himself. He was like, I built Sutter's Fort, I built the mill to mill the lumber, and I built these buildings, Sacramento is mine. And the people who were coming here in droves said, no, we were promised a homestead here. We were promised a homestead, and so there was the squatters' riots in August of 1850. It was a busy year. In September of 1850, California was granted statehood, the 31st state. In October is the infamous cholera outbreak. That's important. That's important because lots and lots of people died here along the river. 5,000 to 6,000 people, nobody knows the exact number. Some people were saying 150 people a day were dying from cholera between October and December of 1850. But the people coming in were more than the people going out, and so the bustle continued. So Samuel Deal builds the Union Hotel in 1850. It was damaged that same December by the flood. We're going to get to some of the things that you felt. It was just sort of doing the history. So it irreparably damaged the hotel. The hotel was rebuilt as the Veranda Hotel in 1852. In November of 1852, this city had such hard luck in the beginning. In November of 1852, once again, most of Sacramento burned down in the Great Fire. 1854, it burns down again. In 1855, J.P. Dyer, that's Joseph Palmer Dyer. Does that name sound familiar?
Is it
I don't
the
think
same
it's
Dyer?
I have not looked that up, but I suspect it might be.
It's not the same Dyer.
It's not, okay.
It's a different name, but it's an we found it interesting that the name, so I wonder how far back the name goes. I don't think there's any relation.
Okay.
Because there was no mention.
See, I didn't look that part up.
But it's an interesting coincidence at the very least.
Yeah. No.
That name would come up again.
Yeah, it was, jeez, oh no, I gotta Google it.
Yeah. So in 1855, J.P. Dyer rebuilds it and renames it the Union Hotel. And during that year, 1855, and you're going to see how this all comes full circle.
Okay.
In 1855, we're right next door to the Orleans Hotel. And the Orleans Hotel had the stagecoach contract. So the stagecoach stopped in front of the Orleans, and Dyer was able to wrestle that contract away from the Orleans Hotel and get the stage, including the Wells Fargo stage, to stop here, and people would stay here, and contracts would be made here. It was a very lucrative contract for the hotel. Whoever held that stage contract, it was huge. So huge, in fact, that you're sitting in what many historians have called the birthplace of California, the Union Hotel.
Wow.
And we'll go into why that might be. So in 1857, the Union Hotel is awarded the contract for U.S. senators to arrive and stay here. So what that means is the Union Hotel is the political center of Sacramento and indeed of California. At this time, Monterey was still the capital of California, but if you're a politician, and the reason the politicians would come to Sacramento is because that's where the people were. Sure, there was San Francisco, but people were flooding into the Sacramento for the gold fields in droves, and now they were coming here in wagons. And they knew where the votes were, so politicians came to Sacramento to get the vote and to get into the newly founded senator seats, and we're going to come back to that. So. In 1857, so we're going to come to one of our first interesting historical things. There was William Gwynn and David Broderick, and they were U.S. senators. And David Broderick was set to get the long-term senatorial seat.
Is that the William that I felt?
There's a couple Williams, so we'll get to it. But William Broderick. David Broderick is William Gwynn, and David Broderick, he was set to win the long-term U.S. Senate seat, but there was an open short-term Senate seat, and there was a lot of question of who that might be. There were several contenders. Gwynn, I have to remember what Gwynn's first name was now. William Gwynn, I'm sorry, David Broderick and William Gwynn. So Gwynn wants that short-term seat. So in 1857, they're having their debates, and the women would actually stand right on this veranda here and watch the debates, which would take place directly across the street from where we're sitting, where the restaurant is now. That was an open forum for senatorial debates. So Gwynn gets a smart idea, and he pins a letter in April of 1857, I want to say, that he pens a letter that's been come to be known as the Scarlet Letter.
No.
And it's a bit of a mystery, and it's directly tied to this hotel. So Gwynn was staying in this hotel, and Broderick was across the street, across the alleyway and I think he may have been staying in a different hotel. He may have been visiting a friend in a hotel. Some of the details are spotty. They don't know everything. Just that Broderick was across the street, and so Gwynn pins this letter, and let's see, this all takes place in January of 1857. He sneaks across the street. This is why I thought your feeling in the alley was so interesting.
Oh, okay.
He's going to do this back alley deal.
Oh.
And he sneaks into the alley and sneaks up to Broderick's room and says, "Look, I've got a proposal for you. So you've got the long-term Senate seat. I want the short-term Senate seat, and we've never gotten along. These two were always at each other's throats over a big topic at the time, abolitionism, or abolition, which is slavery, basically. So they were, he says, let me have this seat, the short-term Senate seat, and I will let you control all of the contracts, all of what they call the patronage contracts for the federal government. Meaning that if Broderick wants it to be at the Union Hotel, it'll be at the Union Hotel. If he wants to give it back to the Orleans, then he can give it back to the Orleans. And you know the back end of that story, it's just like, it's this. You know, who's going to pay up for that contract? As you know, these hotel owners had no problem with that.
So it really felt like a sneaky, secretive deal, like they were doing something, like exchanging something. It felt like a back alley drug deal is what it felt like, but I mean, it was still sort of a back alley deal of some kind. It felt very under the radar, undercover.
So Broderick accepts his deal. Says, okay, good. He's thinking there's money in this for me. I can get the contracts back to the union had the contract, so he's thinking I'll just set pretty with the Union Hotel. Everything's fine, and I'll give, he can have the short-term seat. I already got the long-term Senate seat. For Broderick, it's a win-win. He can't lose with this deal, so he accepts the deal. So, and then in the fall of that same year, Gwen runs against him. And he runs against him. He's like, what are you doing? He breaks the contract, and he runs against him for either or both of the House seats. So the deal is broken, and Broderick doesn't really have the contract or the power that he was promised. And so Gwen basically double crosses him. So basically they go back to Washington and kind of fight it out, and the letter is confiscated by Ferguson, William Ferguson, another Ferguson. So he's confiscated by Sacramento lawman William Ferguson. Not the letter, the Scarlet Letter is as proof of dirty deeds in the back alley. Proof of basically not extortion, but malfeasance of office is the term.
Okay.
So it all gets really interesting, So
validating but creepy.
So Ferguson takes the letter. A month after he takes the Scarlet Letter, he's killed in a duel, but did not take place in Sacramento. But he's killed in a pistol duel. So the letter goes into the custody of Army General J.M. Estill. And he takes the letter, and he was an Army general. Now the Army's in custody of this letter because it's proof of senatorial malfeasance of office. And he gives it back to Broderick. He doesn't want it. He's like, I don't want nothing to do with this. And he gives the letter back to Broderick. So in a famous speech that happened right here across the street, Broderick bequeaths the Scarlet Letter to the people, saying this letter should be the property of the people. 1 month later, after he gives the letter to the people, Broderick is killed in a famous duel that took place in San Francisco at Lake Merced. 1 month after he gives the letter to the people, and that duel was over the very hot political issue of slavery. And ever since then, my understanding is nobody knows what has happened to the Scarlet Letter. Some people say that it's still in this very hotel somewhere. Nobody knows.
Let's go look for it now.
It could be buried. It could be buried in the walls.
Wow.
So from 1862 to after the Great Flood of 1860, from 1862 to 1869, Sacramento finally decided, all right, we got to raise the city. And that was a famous decision to raise the city. And in 1867, as the Union Hotel is raised, she slips off of her jack screws by 8 inches and disintegrates into the street. The whole hotel falls into the street and disintegrates. So then it's rebuilt again in November 1970. Now,
1870 or 1970?
1870.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So what?
1870, it was then again, did I say 19? I'm sorry. 1870, it was rebuilt as the Union Hotel once again, and Dyer ends up being elected mayor in 1867, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a big, this is such a political hot seat. It was during that time in 1867 when it was rebuilt that the hotel finally earned her nickname of Lady Luck. That's the nickname of this hotel. Her name is Lady Luck.
Doesn't sound so lucky to me.
It does, right?
There's been some problems with
and
it.
everybody
Is they
was-
standing after 1870?
Yeah, as of 1867, and when it falls and it's rebuilt in 1870, nobody had ever died any of the times that it burned down, or any of the times that it flooded, or any of the times it crumbled. Nobody ever died in any of those tragedies, and that's why one of the reasons it's thought that she's known as Lady Luck. Although to be clear, thousands of cholera victims probably perished in this hotel, and there's no record of those times. People were just trying not to die during those days.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think Melissa was experiencing outside? We were on the board.
Chronologically, we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's actually significant.
Yeah, chronologically, we'll get
Just
to
make sure
that.
you're titled.
Yeah.
Type with.
Definitely. This was such an important political seat that
That
they
makes sense.
did rebuild it in 1870. And one of the other
It's
things.
meant to be here.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the other reasons it's called Lady Luck, is that every time it dies, it gets rebuilt. And that's now.
Sort of like a phoenix,
Here
it
it
rises
is,
from the
and here it
ashes.
is in 2019, and it's fallen to a little bit of ruin, but no, it's being renovated and it's being renewed once again. Lady Luck strikes again. All right, now we're going to move on to November 1970. Or I keep saying doing that. November 1870, high noon, and the articles that I read did say that this took place at noon. Nobody knows the exact date. So there's these three gentlemen, William Dresser and John Greer and Mark Greer. And these, obviously Mark and John, are two brothers. And William Dresser has some very fierce, nobody really knows what the beef was, but they have the two Greer brothers have a big beef with Mr. Dresser. And it's been going on for years, and there's just this feud that's been going on. It's a political feud. Nobody really knew what it was about. Again, slavery is the suspected. That was the big hot button topic of the time, and they had just had this feud for years. And finally one day on the second floor of this hotel where we are, Dresser and Matt Greer go at it, and Dresser whips out his pistol and pistol whips Matt Greer across the head, and the gun explodes on impact, and it causes a big gash across his forehead. And William Dresser goes, "That'll teach you."
Oh my God.
But everybody lives. Nobody dies from that.
Okay.
So, and this all happened in November, in late November, and again, we don't know if it was before or after Thanksgiving, and
Yeah,
being
facts.
corrected.
Hold on.
Hold on, please hold.
Back to the career thing.
Yeah, but I haven't gotten to the main Greer thing.
Okay.
No, that's how it started.
Okay.
That's how it started. No, there's more.
Because, is that maybe why I felt like a whole head pain?
I was wondering about that.
Like that sharp pain
Because
in my head?
you could,
So pistol whip would kind of hurt.
being pistol whipped would hurt,
To
and
the
then,
hair.
and then all the bullets in the gun go off at the same
Right.
time.
You're right.
Yeah. So,
That might explain that pain that I felt.
all right, Matt Greer's not gonna let this go.
Okay.
Matt Greer, this guy is pissed, and he is going to have his revenge. And sometime in 1870, as he knew, nobody knows how he knew, but he knew that Dresser was going to be coming to the Union Hotel. And the stairs that go down to the original level, that's the original entrance to the hotel.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so Matt Greer hides in basically the first place where you felt pain, and the stairwell there, and the second floor landing. Matt Greer hides and waits for William Dresser to enter the hotel, and he's got his guns and he's loaded for bear. And I'm almost emotional just not only picturing it, but the how accurately you really recreated this and your empathic
I had to feel every moment of that.
Yeah.
That was not enjoyable.
Dresser comes in unsuspecting, and people pleaded with John Greer's brother to stop this, put an end to this madness. And you really blew me away with something you said. You almost said what he said word for word, not quite. But John Greer was quoted as saying, "I'm not going to get involved. This is going to happen anyways. They're going to have to duke it out. This is going to happen sooner or later. This is something that's going to happen, and just let them duke it out." Thinking that maybe they would just piss each other off. So one of the last great gunfights of the old, well, at least California, at least the Sacramento area, ensues in those stairways. So Greer opens fire on William Dresser. William Dresser pulls his pistol and returns fire, and then. And basically, John Greer gets in on it. When Dresser starts firing on his brother, he can't help himself. And John Greer draws his pistol and doubles down with his brother on Dresser. William Dresser is killed and falls down the stairs.
Oh my God.
As Matt Greer dies, and the story is that Matt Greer and William Dresser died at the bottom of the stairs at the same time. And at that very moment, the Sacramento fire bell is tolled. At the moment that they both died.
Well, that's a little creepy, and I just got a little bit of a chill.
But John Greer
didn't
also
die.
shot, ran down the street.
Yeah. He ran down the street away from constables. That's absolutely correct.
So feeling somebody running
He fled.
He took off while shot.
Yep. And he was taken into custody. He was never convicted of the crime, though.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he was. I think that goes into something, but I don't think that he was obviously involved. But did he start it? So maybe that's what happened in court. I don't have the court proceedings in front of me on that, but that's what you were feeling in the stairs.
That was a horrible fit of pain. And if two people died in that spot, that would explain to me why the pain was so significant and it was way more than an average death state because it felt that intense.
Yeah.
The bullet runs through his body and his liver.
Yeah, that's right.
He succumbed to his
That's right.
injuries, just as the fire bell told, signaling the death of Dresser.
There you go.
So all that horrible pain in my
Part of it.
Oh yeah, that's because she was feeling the gut pain, so that's relevant. Yeah,
That's definitely
Thank
relevant.
So from 1870 on, we don't have to go through 100 years of history.
No.
Actually, from 1870.
Compress the hot spots.
From 1870 on, it's basically run as a hotel, and the political angle is still important. But as California and the nation and the West grows, and then the railroad's completed, it starts to become less important.
Okay.
And the hotel ends up changing hands. And there, Lady Luck strikes again. Every time the hotel it runs down, somebody buys it and picks it back up, and that's most people think that that's really where Lady Luck gets her name. We could go through the list of owners of the hotel, but that part's really kind of boring. Nothing else of note happens until all the way halfway through the 20th century, and we come to September of 1950.
Okay.
Right. So, and this is going to floor everybody.
This is a good one.
So it's
Should I buckle up?
buckle up,
Put on
buddy.
your seatbelt. Hold on to your potatoes.
On September 5th of 1950, the mangled, badly beaten and raped body of Audrey Wilson is found at 3:45 a.m. in the second floor bathroom.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
We were dying.
We were dying.
Oh my God!
Are you
The name Audrey.
Audrey, you had the first two letters.
I was like Amy or
Aw. You kept saying it had an aw name to it.
Yeah, your hits were
I need
uncanny.
to go down and sit down.
It gets better.
She'd been beaten and murdered.
Poor woman.
A side note, poor homeless man Ray Green was arrested for the murder because he was waiting in the bar for her. He had a date with her. She's a prostitute.
Oh, shit.
She's a prostitute, and he's waiting for a date, and everybody thinks he did it. The guy's innocent. He didn't do it.
The newspaper called it a vicious and unnatural sex act.
Yes.
Oh.
And
You nailed that.
yeah, parts were torn.
Ah.
Yeah,
Oh, no one.
parts were torn. Yeah.
That poor woman.
She was small, 5'5", 125 pounds.
Is this the same woman that you've been hearing crying?
I think
I
so.
believe
I
it's
feel
the
like
same
I think so.
she just keeps sobbing like
She is
yeah.
Audrey
I
Wilson
think so.
is the known ghost of the second floor.
Is she? Oh my God.
Yeah, So this poor bastard Green goes to jail for murder, but he's later released. They figure out that he didn't do it. A fellow by the name of Jorge Rodriguez Reynoso is convicted of the murder 9 months later. It's actually, I should say, arrested for the murder 9 months later in San Francisco after he brags about his deed to a friend of his as he's being deported from California in San Francisco. So then I'm not being deported because you're under arrest for murder.
Holy cow.
So,
This poor woman, oh my God. She's so sweet too.
Jorge Rodriguez Reynoso was jailed in San Francisco and awaiting deportation. He bragged to his cellmate about killing an American girl in Sacramento while under the influence of some pills. He said they agreed to go to his room for sex for $5. When they were done, she tried to leave, but he refused to let her go, saying she had promised him a good time. He grabbed her by the neck and squeezed until she turned kind of black. While unconscious, he used her again, then repeated the entire process once more. When he was done, he slapped her, but she wouldn't wake up. He disposed of her body in the restroom next door. She had 2 sons, ages 11 and 9 at the time of the murder.
Oh my God.
She was laid to rest beside her mother, father, and brother on September 18, 1950.
What are those children?
No, not much. I couldn't find much on either of her
There's
kids.
no,
Yeah.
that's all they say.
But that little boy, why is he here? Why is his energy?
He's the one that I didn't understand.
Like, I don't know if it's like him coming to spend his,
Possible.
because he obviously would have lived hopefully a full life. Is he coming back here in child form to help his mother move on, to cross over?
Possible.
He's coming to retrieve her? Because I feel like her energy is so palpable to me. And like she wants help, she needs help. I'm wondering if he's here to come take her.
Maybe.
I mean, that's obviously theoretical, but maybe we can get some evidence of that.
We do have one more.
Oh boy.
We're not done.
Oh no, okay, we'll go get the
We
last
have
one,
one
and we
more.
gotta validate these souls. They deserve it.
Finally, well, it wouldn't be fair to leave this to the last story out.
Of
Yeah.
course not, of course not.
On New Year's Eve in 2012, this is a recent one.
Oh.
And it was,
Oh yeah, there was some sort of drama down here. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I know there was
and-
always drama in Old Sac, but that makes
Yeah. New Year's Eve 2012, I'll go through this quickly. Door security guard Daniel Ferrier, and we have a picture of him. And the bar customer, Gabriel Cordova, is killed in a shootout outside the original bank annex building in the entrance to the Union Hotel. That's why I had to go to the morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they killed in a shootout with Carlito Montoya and Charles Fowler Schultz. And Schultz and Montoya were both gang members. Montoya was a known gang member. And the whole thing happened because Gabriel Cordova accidentally bumped against Fowler Schultz's wife and spilled a drink at the bar.
That's a stupid reason to get in a big old fight.
And
to be
so
perfectly honest.
they ended up confronting the Gabriel Cordova downstairs in front of the hotel. And of course, Ferrier, he was actually off that. He was supposed to be off that night and switched shifts with a friend who wasn't feeling well. And so Ferrier tried to break it up, and both Ferrier and Gabriel Cordova were killed on site.
I wonder if that relates to the blood you were tasting.
Yeah, because I mean, it felt like everything was just filling up with blood, and it tasted so coppery and disgusting, and I was like, it tastes crappy out here, and it was a pretty intense feeling.
And we have pictures of Gabriel Cordova and Daniel Ferrier.
Oh man.
He was an Iraq War veteran too.
Oh jeez.
He was just trying to help out.
I remember when that happened. John and Kara were down here.
Were
When
they?
it happened, they were there.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
John didn't come to this investigation.
I know.
Yeah. He could add the
Oh my gosh.
the experience. And so that is the sordid and
And I don't feel like they're still here.
okay, good.
I feel like that was just a really residual record player energy, like it was just,
Yeah.
seeped
That's
into the
good.
space. But I feel like their souls are fine and clear
Yeah, they're
and
not
into
hanging.
the light. But the female
Good.
is the one that I feel the most, like, I don't know if I want to say stuck, but like, there's something that she needs, some sort of something that she needs out of us. So I'm wondering either through.
You mean the one in the stairwell? Or the one, not the one in the bathroom?
The one in the bath, the
The
female
one that
bathroom,
got
yeah,
ripped
she
out,
needs the most help. The energy in the stairwell, while palpable, I think that maybe they'll interact, but I'm not sure if they're actually stuck. I couldn't quite tell. It was a pretty heavy death
We can
state,
find out.
but I'm not 100% like,
Are they entities?
I'm not totally sure. I feel like they might be conscious entities,
Okay.
but I don't know if they're transitioned or not. They're not asking for anything as much as she's asking for something.
Well, one of the guys, right before he took his last breath, basically admitted that he was dying. Like, it was almost like he was fully aware of it. He was like, John Greer murdered me.
Yeah, the famous
He
quote.
said- Yeah, he said, John Greer murdered me. I didn't think he'd have done it.
Yeah,
Like, he had come to an acceptance before he ever passed away.
that's the famous
So-
quote, that's right.
So
So
that-
there was a record player effect down there as well.
Yeah, maybe possibly the
Residual.
other soul. Maybe he's a little more active here. But
Yeah.
either way, after we're done with investigating, I'm going to spend a little meditative moment to try to help any of them that need it, regardless. Just
The way you hit on where Matt Greer died and where William Dresser died, and then Greer fell down the stairs, and you recreated all of that.
that really bothers me.
That's
It's validating. I love validation, but to have to feel that, like, I don't know. It's hard. It's dichotomous. I like the validation, but I don't like any of what I had to feel.
absolutely
I don't
understand.
That's astonishing.
Yeah, it really is. We were astonished. We were dying, yeah. And that is the sordid and storied history of the Union Hotel, which is huge in Sacramento's founding, formation, and huge in the history of California. Many of the major decisions that affected the formation of California were made right here in this hotel.
Wow. No wonder it has so much energy. I mean,
Yeah.
because the building feels alive to some degree. I
Sure.
mean,
It was used for a lot of political speeches
Sure.
and a lot of gathering before there was, Capitol building.
Right.
This
And they had elsewhere to
this
go.
was a central point for a lot of decision making that formed California. So
With this.
well, I think that a couple of things that maybe we can do to kind of validate some of this. Obviously, we're going to want to run a little bit of Spirit Box. We are going to want to do a quick SLS sweep of the space. But maybe we take a quick pause, kind of chart our attack so it can be efficient but also complete with everything we need to do. And then I do want to set up a couple of meters. That very terrible stairwell would be a good place for SLS and RAD Pod.
Absolutely.
So I think
If
that-
not Spirit Box.
well, I want to do Spirit Box in here. They're gonna come to me.
Yeah, they will.
I'm gonna find
They
a
will.
plug.
You're right.
They're gonna come to me.
Oh, that's right.
They're not stuck in
But
one.
I think a little SLS and a couple, down the stairs and up in this and in the bathroom where I would have been. I think that that's where we should focus. I don't think we need to take the SLS or anything up to the third floor down. I don't think
I just
that's-
wanted to show it to you.
Yeah, I don't think that part's necessary, but I think the stairwell and the bathroom are where we probably want to focus. And then we'll and then we'll do another little sit down and put the Spirit Box out and just see if anybody actually wants to be heard. And then maybe collectively together we can just kind of take a little meditative moment to help some of these souls as we wrap a little bit later.
Yep.
That would be the best.
okay.
Perfect.
That poor woman.